Hello and welcome to week 4. In week 4, we're going to talk about chapter 7. It's also midterm week. All this stuff is available and is due by midnight on Sunday the 13th. So, chapter 7 is talking about bonds. Key features of bonds, bond valuation, measuring yield, and assessing risk. What is bond? A long-term debt instrument in which a borrower agrees to make payments of principal and interest on specific dates to holders of the bond. Basically, a bond is a loan, similar to like a mortgage or a car loan that you might have, except it's for a business. And the rules of a bond are usually laid out very specifically on which dates the money is due, how much, and some of the features. We have the par value, face amount of the bond, which is paid at maturity. Usually these are sold in $1,000 increments, $10,000 increments, things like that. The coupon interest rate, the stated interest rate generally fixed, paid by the issuer. The maturity date, the issue date, and yield to maturity. So the coupon interest rate and the yield to maturity might be different. And there's some other features, convertible bonds. So if you buy convertible bonds, they might be available to convert to common stock, a warrant, a puttable bond, an income bond, or an index bond. Effects of a call provision allows the issuer, the company borrowing the money, to refund the bond issue if rates decline. So it's good for the person borrowing and the company borrowing, bad for the people borrowing the money. If there is a call provision, bond investors will require a higher yield on those because there's a higher case that they're going to lose money, especially if rates are higher and it's expected that rates will go lower. Um, in many cases, callable bonds include a deferred call provision and a declining call provision. So that basically says that if you call it, we're going to get paid a little extra for you to get out of the loan. What is a sinking fund? A provision to pay off a loan over its life rather than all at maturity. This is more like a mortgage. It's similar to amortization on a term loan, reduces risk to investor, shortens the average maturity, but not good for investors if rates decline after issuance. So the value of financial assets. Remember, this is just time value of money. We have our time value of money at year 1, year 2, all the way out to the end of the bond. The discount rate is the opportunity cost of capital and is the rate that can be earned on alternative investments of equal risk. So if you were to invest $1,000 somewhere, how much would you expect to get from a similar spot? So here we have what is the value of a 10-year, 10% annual coupon bond if RD equals 10%, the discount rate out there. So we would expect $1,000. And we have in our Excel spreadsheet that you can use to verify this. Now here, what is the value of a 10-year bond outstanding with the same risk but a 13% annual coupon rate? So they're paying a higher interest rate. So we're getting $130, which means, don't let that negative confuse you, the present value is $1,184 and some change. They get more money if they sell that in the market because they're paying a higher interest rate. The payments are higher. So it's worth more than the previous one where they're just making the market risk payments. Now we look at one where they're paying $70 a payment, effectively 7%. Now this is worth less money because for the same risk, we would expect $1,000. Higher interest rate, more money. Lower interest rate, it's worth less. That makes sense, right? And this is a graphical representation of that. Bond values over time. At maturity, the value of the bond must equal its par value. If the rate remains constant, the value of a bond would decrease over time until it reached 1,000. The value of a discount bond would increase over time until it reached 1,000. The value of a par bond stays at $1,000. This is just an accounting term, really. So eventually, the value of this 1,184 will come down to the $1,000. And here, the 816 will go up to the $1,000. It's amortization. Unless you're an accounting major, don't really worry about this. Just know that this is going to come down over time to the $1,000, and that's going to go up. Us accountants like to make things more complicated. What is the yield to maturity on the following bond? 10-year, 9% annual coupon, 1,000 par value selling for 887. You do all this work and it's 887. The rate is 10.91%. So that is the effective rate. Here we have an effective rate of 7.08 because it's at the present value is a little bit higher. And you can use Excel for any of these equations. So some definitions. A current yield equals the annual coupon payment divided by the current price. Capital gains yield is the change in price divided by the beginning price. And expected total return is yield to maturity equals expected current yield plus expected capital gains yield. So here's an example. Find the current yield and capital gains yield for a 10-year 9% annual coupon that sells for $887 and has a face value of $1,000. Current yield is 10.15. Yield to maturity equals current yield plus capital gains yield. Capital gains yield equals yield to maturity minus current yield. So 10.91 minus a 10.15, 0.76. So what is price risk? Does a 1-year or a 10-year bond have more price risk? Price risk is the concern that a rising rate will cause the value of a bond to fall. The 10-year bond is more sensitive to interest rate changes and hence has more price risk because of time value of money. Small changes, and then you have remember our time value of money, the longer you invest money at a certain rate, you're going to earn interest on the interest. What is reinvestment risk? Reinvestment risk is the concern that the rate will fall and future cash flows will have to be reinvested at a lower rate. So let's say you have a $500,000 playing the lottery. You intend to invest the money and live off the interest. You can put it into a 10-year bond or a 1-year bond. If you put it into a 10-year bond, you can lock in how much money you're going to get every year. If you go and buy a 1-year bond, what if rates fall? You could lose that income, the difference between the two when you reinvest. However, a 10-year bond would generally have a different interest rate versus a 1-year bond. So, semi-annual bonds. This is time value of money stuff. You multiply the years by 2, you divide the rate by 2, and you divide the annual coupon rate by 2 because they're paying twice. Twice a year, so number of periods twice, divide the rate by 2 because you're getting paid twice a year, divide the coupon rate by 2 because you're getting paid twice a year. The rates are always going to be a little bit higher when you do that because it's the time value of money. We're getting more money. We're earning interest on the interest. Would you prefer to buy a 10-year 10% annual coupon or a 10-year 10% semi-annual coupon bond, all else being equal? We can go through and do the math. Semi-annual is 10.25. 10.25 is higher than 10% because we're earning interest on the interest. If you bought these callable bonds, would you be more likely to earn the yield to maturity or yield to call? So yield to maturity, that's what's on the face of the bond. Yield to call is how much it's going to cost them to call it. So the coupon rate is 10% compared to yield to call, 7.137. The firm could raise money by selling new bonds which pay 7.137. So if you were borrowing money, you can replace the $100 payments with $71 payments. You're going to do that. So you're going to expect a yield to call. Default risk. This is the risk that someone's going to stop paying you. The way you can equate this is each of us has FICO scores. 740, 720, 680. The lower your FICO score, the more you pay to borrow money. Same thing for businesses. Businesses get a rating from Moody's or S&P, and the rating dictates how much they have to pay for their interest when they borrow money. So going from a junk bond to an investment grade can save you a ton of money. And going from BAA all the way to AAA can save you a ton of money. So these are really important. Factors affecting default risk and bond ratings, financial performance, so they look at our ratios. Some qualitative factors, secured versus unsecured. Are you going to put up a building to borrow the money, or are you just going to get money? So, like the interest rate on a mortgage is much lower because it's secured versus a credit card. Now, imagine that if you're trying to borrow $10 million and you put it against a building or just the money that the company makes. Unsecured is always more expensive. Senior versus subordinated, this just means, let's say you have secured, but you're putting it on a building. If it's the first lien, that would be senior. Say if it was a second, that would be subordinated. Same thing, we can equate this to a house. If you have a second mortgage, the second mortgage is always more because the subordinated debt is behind the senior debt. Guarantee and sinking fund positions and debt maturity. How long is it going to be out there? Other factors, earning stability, regulatory environment, potential antitrust or product liabilities, pension liabilities, potential labor problems, things that could make it hard for you to pay people back. People want to get paid back if you're very stable, if you're in a very good business environment, if you're doing good work, it's going to cost you less. Bankruptcy. If a company can't meet its obligations, it can file Chapter 11 to stop creditors from closing and taking the assets, closing the business, and has 120 days to file a reorganization plan. Court appoints a trustee to supervise the reorganization. Management usually stays in control, and the company must demonstrate in its reorganization plan that it is worth more alive than dead. If not, the judge will order liquidation under Chapter 7. So the hope when you file Chapter 11 is that you can get rid of some bad debts, make some good choices, and start earning money again to start paying people back. Some people will lose money. Sometimes even bonds will have their terms changed to make it more agreeable for the business to stay open. Whereas if you do Chapter 7, you have the priority of claims and liquidation secured, trustees' cost, wages subject to limits, taxes, unfunded pension liabilities, unsecured creditors. See, secured creditors way up here at the top, unsecured way down here after all these expenses are paid. And then we have preferred stock and common stock. So if you're a common stock holder and the business is looking to go into liquidation, that is always bad for you. You want the business to stay open. However, if you're a secured creditor and you know that business that has an $8 million loan on it is worth $20 million, you're okay with liquidation. You know you're going to get your money back. And then reorganization. In a liquidation, unsecured creditors generally receive nothing because they're way down on that list. They're number 6 down there. This makes them more than willing to participate in reorganization, even though their claims are greatly scaled back. Would you rather have a dollar today, or would you rather have it be wiped out and get nothing, or maybe 50 cents in the future? This is what unsecured creditors are thinking. I need to get any little bit of money I can back. So various groups of creditors vote on the reorganization plan. If the majority of creditors and the judge approve, the company emerges from bankruptcy with lower debts, reduced interest charges, and a chance for success. Basically, if there's a lot of unsecured debt, a business will generally get Chapter 11 bankruptcy. That way, there's a chance that everyone can get paid back. That's the goal here. All right, that's it for week 4. Good luck on your midterm. Remember, if you have any questions at all, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help. Just let me know and we'll get it taken care of for you. All right. Good luck, everybody. Bye bye.